Hey everybody, it's Savage Lands News coming to you today with an extra special guest, Chandler To, calling winning Rhinar player. He is here to have a really interesting discussion about Rhinar, when to pick claws, when to pick club. In case you guys didn't know, he was running both in his winning list. So nobody better to talk about this topic than him. So if you want to introduce yourself, maybe give us a little bit of background on who you are. How long have you been playing Flesh and Blood? Why'd you pick Rhinar? I don't know. Take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Chandler To. I've been playing since about September last year when Tales of Arya released.
Nice.
Uh, Kind of just picked up Rhinar because he looks pretty straightforward and only had 30 living legend points, so
Yep,
didn't have to
that's
worry too
true.
much about that.
Yeah,
And
how does
I,
it feel to have doubled his living legend points yourself, basically?
it feels pretty cool. Hopefully someday someone else is gonna have more than me, and that'll be pretty sweet.
Well, you put your name on Rhinar, that's for sure. That's amazing. So do you play any other heroes?
Uh, Not really. I haven't actually, outside of an armory, I haven't played Rhinar at, Pro Quest or any of the big callings and stuff like that. It's just been Rhinar.
So you just walked up to one of the major tournaments last year and crushed it with like no other tournament experience and no pro quest, nothing like that. Is that what you said?
So I've gone to a couple events. I went to
Okay.
Calling, New Jersey as Rhinar. Ended up getting
Oh,
12th with a pretty similar build, 9 pummels. And then US Nats, I got 21st playing pretty much the same Rhinar I'm playing now.
you were at US Nats. Were you at the calling at US Nats or US Nats directly?
US Nats event directly.
Oh, cool. Okay, I was at nationals. I got 14th place with Rhinar at the calling. So yeah, there was actually three high placing Rhinars that day. Really cool. Okay. Do you have any future goals? Like now that you wrapped up the year, you got your W, you're looking at 2023. Like, what are your major aspirations for next year?
Honestly, it's probably just to keep playing Rhinar and see how well I can do with him. I haven't played in a lot of big events. I played in Worlds, but I ended up dropping day one. So maybe try to day two the Pro Tour and see how well I can do.
So, questions from the Discord. Um, he's laid out a couple cards that are in his hand. Turn one, nothing really major you can accomplish. How do you typically open a game if you don't get that like quad intimidate, alpha rampage, or that, blood rush or anything along those lines? What's your goals with turn one?
Yeah, so for this deck, it's a lot different because I'm not running that broadening beatdown Alpha Rampage package, so I'm much less likely to cheat damage in turn one.
Yeah.
So ideally, I would just win the die roll and go second. But of
Okay.
course, there's still matchups that you want to go first in, and most of the time it's kind of just arsenaling and passing. Sometimes if your hand's really bad and you just want to get cards out, then you'll throw out a random six. But
Okay. That's interesting. So you pick second typically.
yeah. As long as my opponent doesn't have a way to kind of cheat in value turn one,
Mm,
so maybe that's like playing a permanent, an aura, or
yeah.
an item.
Okay.
But most of the time I will go second.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay. I was noticing in my testing too, now that tools like Talishar exist, I was really set on going first a lot of time. I do run alpha rampages and barraging beatdowns, so cheating damage on turn one was really my goal. But then I started noticing that the win rates were actually either very close or oftentimes going second seemed to have a higher win rate, which really surprised me. To iterate from my perspective on that question, what I typically do on turn one if I don't get the play is, I mean, scab skins is always an option, right? You can try and throw down like a claw and a attack for six. But what I typically want to do is cycle as many cards out of my hand as possible, as long as they're not relevant to my game plan. So, if I can pitch two cards, play the six, and put the a good two cost, three cost card in my arsenal just to get closer to my blood rush, that's typically what I do. Okay, so question number two. Smash with big tree. Okay. Why would you pick a card like that with no block over something like Bare Fangs?
Yeah, so I think it was about March of earlier this year. I kind of was only running Bare Fangs. I hadn't even touched the big tree, kind of laughed at it. It seemed like a silly card.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those games where the random discard really screwed me over, and it was kind of the reason I lost.
Hmm.
And I kind of just wanted to minimize that variance and eliminate the ability for myself to, randomly discard a blood rush, things like that. And as well as just always have control over kind of putting cards into my arsenal. Just because if you play a Bare Fangs, you don't know if you'll be able to arsenal a card in your hand.
Yeah, I super agree with that sentence. So I'm actually working future video. Maybe I'll include you in it because you're good at this as well, from what I'm gathering. So brute math is what I'm calling it. Um, Bare Fangs, from my perspective, is the reward is often not worth the risk, right? So if you think about your average Rhinar deck, we're running like 17, 18, 19 blues. You got 3 copies of Blood Rush Bellows in there minimum. That's if you have no D reacts, nothing else, right? That's a 20 of your cards right there that are non-6, aka like 1 and 3. So you have and oftentimes we're playing the 2-card play. So you're off the topping that discard. So you're really looking at a 1 in 3 chance of that card failing. You average that out, your Bare Fangs are coming in for 7.33 damage, no longer coming in for 8 on average. And you're discarding a random card, which could be your Blood Rush. It could be your win con, right? And then there's certain matchups, in my opinion, where like discarding a Blood Rush is a loss. You know,
Mhm.
straight. Like you probably need all 3 of them to kill an Oldhim. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a really interesting perspective. I never thought of Smash with Big Tree, and as soon as I saw it on your list, I started thinking about it. I think it was a really good choice. I think it's really cool. It's a really
Yeah,
cool choice, actually.
it came in clutch for a lot of older matchups where, even discarding another card just gets you closer to fatigue, right?
Yeah. The other really interesting card in your list. I'm pretty sure when I was sitting next to you, I heard you rolling your cup of dice to play it. As I'm forgetting the name, the buff card. The one
Rolling
that
Thunder.
Rolling Thunder. Yes, another card you don't often see in lists. So, what was your thought around that card?
Yeah, so I think this was when we saw the Canadian list come out from Canadian Nats.
Hmm.
They ran Sigil Solace just kind of as a way to use bigger hands because obviously you're not always going to roll multiple actions on scabs. You're not always going to
Yeah.
have enough to pitch. So having a free card that you can play is very nice. And Rolling Thunder kind of does that well in that it works very well on your 2-cost brute attacks, right? Since
Hmm.
you'll usually have a blue to pitch. And
Yeah.
it also works on your club as well and makes your club swap a lot stronger.
Yeah. I always really liked that card. It was on the top of my like maybe list. And then as I started kind of mathing out like this brute math video where I have a spreadsheet, eventually I'll share it with everybody, but that card is actually one of almost always our best card. I can't believe it. Like when you average that out, even the +3, the things it enables you to do is crazy. So I think you having that in your list is like eye opening, right? I think that card is incredible. If you ever roll a 4, it comes in so high above rate, like especially on this club plays. But okay, excellent. That's all the questions I had. So we'll dive into the main topic of this video, which is exactly what we kind of just segued from: when to play claws, when to play club, what heroes they're good into, and we'll kind of go back and forth and discuss. All right, everybody. So we're going to jump into it. Here on the screen, you can see just a kind of a light tier list. This is a high level discussion, but we're going to go through each one of the heroes classes, and we're going to kind of go back and forth, talk about whether we think club is the right decision in that matchup or claws. If we can't really reach agreement, or we have a matchup we're not really sure on, we'll put it in the undecided tier. Okay, so let's start off with everybody's favorite class, brute. What do you run into Rhinar specifically, into the mirror?
Yeah, I think in that matchup, since we don't have a lot of disruption inherently, I kind of just want to go claws and try to draw more
Yeah.
blood rushes.
Yeah. Are you worried? I'm worried about this. The sudden surge of Rhinar players and the mirror being a possibility, right? Like me and you almost fought each other in top 8, but I'm seeing a lot of Rhinars in the Fab Team Cup games, in the discussions online. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because we kind of have multiple builds, right? We have
Hmm.
mine with a lot less intimidate. We have something like yours or the Canadian list. There are
Mm-hmm.
even some very club-centric aggressive lists. So it's getting a little bit harder to kind of plan for what Rhino you're facing.
Oh man, I know. And I'm still not even I don't think Rhinar players in general are that tested. Like, yes, we play Rhinar a lot, but I haven't played that many Rhinars. So like, is a safer version of Rhinar better? Is the more aggressive pulping wild ride better? Like, it's gonna be interesting to see, especially if there's a bunch of us at these tournaments in the future, right? What do you think about Levia as the other brute?
Yeah, similarly enough, she just doesn't have the disruption, so try to draw more blood rushes.
Yeah, whoever hits harder wins. Okay. All right, so we'll get into the ninjas. Probably the menace everybody knows, Fi. What do you personally do in a Fi?
Yeah, so this is a really tough one just because Phi has two masks, right? Mask momentum and mask of the
Yeah.
pouncing links.
Hmm.
So generally, I would not want to run claws into mask momentum just because if they're demanding multiple blocks from you, you're not going to be able to have that big claws turn.
Hmm.
But if they are running the links, it becomes a little more interesting because they don't have the on hit effects, right?
Hmm.
Problem is you never really know, so
Yeah.
it's kind of an undecided one, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I never played club. Last time I played club was probably ProQuest season 1 or 2. I run claws in the Fi because it's my only option that I brought. I do like to have that massive blood rush turn, like that 20 damage blood rush turn to really catch up. But then, like you said, like every once in a while they make me block with my whole hand, and then I just kind of throw 3 at them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it's undecided. I like claws, but I could totally see, club really bringing in value with like, the rolling thunders and all of that kind of stuff that you have in your deck. So we'll put it in the middle. What about Katsu?
I think Katsu's a lot easier just because he's not going to switch mass usually. It'll probably just
Yeah.
be mass momentum. I know there's the Katsu build, but I haven't really played tested against it too much.
Yeah. It's the new one with the tigers and all of that. Like, if it works, it's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. And then and then every other time you play against it, it doesn't do anything. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm not sure. If somebody figures out that deck, it's gonna be bad for Rhinar players. It's so many little ones you can't block. So you think club?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Katsu's actually one of my hardest claw matchups. Even I'm so happy that Hero's not popular, so I would bet club is better too, to be honest. What about Oldhim and we're getting into Guardian territory. What do you think about Oldhim?
Oldham's tough just because he has that inherent disruption of always being able to ice react you when you try to blood rush.
Yep. Yeah.
I do think it's still the way to go just because you need to provide some sort of big damage or you will get fatigued. So a remembrance is usually enough to keep you in the game.
I saw that remembrance in your list. I really was actually curious on it. So you run it for Oldhim. Any other matchups?
Sometimes I might run it into something like Dromai, uh,
Okay.
maybe even Dash if I know they're on control, but it's
Hmm.
definitely there for Oldham.
And you were saying claws is like the right choice, like going over, or do you think club for Oldhim? Sorry.
Yeah, I do think Claws,
Yeah. Okay.
regardless of if they're on Stalagmite or Rampart, even though Stalagmite makes it a lot harder to get that big turnoff, right? But we
Yeah.
at least have Skullcrack, which is kind of a way to counter that.
Yeah, if you're not running stalagmite into Rhinars, you're making a mistake. Like, we revolve our entire game plan around that piece of equipment. It's actually wild. I started rolling on my Blood Rush turns towards those top tables. Like, I would actually roll Scab Skins before playing Blood Rush, just so I could play with Swing Big first to guarantee the Ice React wouldn't go through. Do you have any like tips on Oldhim? Because I know that's Oldhim and Fire kind of two of those big top tier decks that we always run into, and I know a lot of Rhinars struggle into it.
Yeah, I think, at least for my build, because I know a lot of people try to stack Intimidates as
Hmm.
a way to break through at the end,
Yeah,
but you kind of just need to have good trades and sometimes accept that Winter Whale Frostbite if it means you
yeah,
might be able to do an attack and a claw as well. The
that makes
earlier the
sense.
stalagmite goes away, the better.
Yeah, if they give me a stalagmite on a non Blood Rush turn, I am so excited, so excited. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Okay, what do you think about Bravo? He's more interesting, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit more different, I think, just because he kind of has those. big attacks with Terra Sunder on Anothos and a Dominated Crippling Crush. So you really want to have a defense reaction arsenal for that, right? Unless
Yeah.
you're running something like a red unmovable.
Yeah.
So I do like to have the claws plan just because it's a way to push through damage, but it definitely can be a struggle to arsenal an attack for your Blood Rush turn or arsenal
Yeah.
a D-React.
Yeah. Like just those on hits, so much pressure all the time. They always come like the turn you're holding your blood rush in your hand too, and you have to like skate around it somehow. It's hard. Um but yeah, I agree. I think claws, you honestly want to kill Bravo before he kills you, right? Like you don't want to give him too much time, in my opinion, to set up. If you hit like second and a half cycle, like Bravo's just gonna be unrelenting for 5 turns in a row, you know. Okay,
Exactly.
warriors. Warriors are interesting because they're both so different. But what about Boltyn?
Yeah, so Boltyn, he's another hero that has two builds, right? With the Lumina combo sabers and then kind of a Raiden aggro. But I think the vast majority will be Lumina combo.
Yeah,
And in that case, it's a deck that you're not really going to want to block against too much. You just want to put on pressure before they combo you. So
yeah,
Claw should be the way to go.
yeah, 100%. Don't another one of those decks where it's like you give them too much time, you lose. You know. Dori though, Dori's an interesting one because I'm really curious on your perspective with the switch plan, right? What do you think on Dori?
Yeah, Dori's tough. I don't have a ton of experience in that matchup. And, I've kind of had varying games where if I run claws, then sometimes I can just high roll
Yeah,
and not have to worry about a Dawnblade getting crazy. And
yeah.
I've also had games where I decide to play club and just ends up being a very close grind fest. So I would kind of put it in the undecided for now.
I can totally see. Dory is just a skill matchup, right? I mean, there is the ability on both sides. Obviously, it's a TCG. We can both spiral out of control. Rhinar could hit all 3 blood rushes in the first 4-ish hands and win, and then Dory can also just see the nuts, get 2 counters, and obliterate you. But I think Dory's just we're both playing really fair mid-range style decks, so it's a skill off. I think it can go both ways. Non-blocks are pretty dangerous in the Dori. Having D-Rex helps tremendously into Dori, but I think it goes both ways also. Lexi. What do you think about Lexi?
Lexi is definitely one of the major club matchups just
Yeah.
because she's providing on hits basically almost every turn.
Yep.
Playtesting recently against the new list using dynasty cards like Drill Shot
Oof.
demands blocks even more, right? They got
Yeah.
another zero cost arrow with an on hit.
Yeah. Fatiguing Lexi is always going to be a strategy from my perspective. Like, I've accidentally defaulted to fatigue on like Viserai into Alexi in a big tournament, and it worked with all the 2 blocks. Like, if they give you a frostbite or 2 or 3 every single turn, like it just sometimes that's the only thing that you can do to survive, right? So I think club 100%. As soon as I lost club, that matchup actually got harder.
For sure.
What about Azalea? You think same kind of thing, or is it different?
So Azalea's a bit different just because she's going to dominate you. So that means you're only going to block with one card. You can't just, block a lot in club.
Yeah,
So I would like to go for claws just because it uses a big hand better.
I actually
Obviously,
agree
it's
with
not.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so great against Red in the Ledger, but
No.
if you happen to run pummels, those are pretty good.
Oh yeah, another card that I do miss. I'm actually experimenting putting pummels back in. I'm not so sure on the quantity or the colors yet, but man, having pummels into certain heroes is just like amazing.
Hmm.
All right, a weird one. I don't even know if we're going to be able to reach an answer for this one, but Dash.
Yeah, so probably one of the most classic heroes with multiple builds, right? The aggro and the
Yeah.
items. Um, it's tough because I think the consensus on the new aggro list hasn't really been reached. A lot of people say, no, you can't fatigue it anymore. They just do too much damage. And
Yeah.
I haven't play tested that myself, but at the very least, you definitely want claws for control. So,
Yeah. Dash is such an interesting hero because it's hard no matter what. Like, I mean, the obviously our best matchup is going to be like the control variant with all the items. Like if you play Arg Smash, like you're going to win that one basically just with
mhm.
patience. But yeah, the new dash is really looking scary. It's fast, has a lot of really good backup plans. It's harder to fatigue than the old versions. So, do you have any dash tips in general when you like what you're any plays you're looking to do in the dash? Any like mindsets you have?
Yeah, so obviously finding out which build they're playing is kind of important, which you can
Yeah,
usually tell when they flip their item.
yeah,
Though once the game starts happening, they might be a little more flexible in how much they
hmm
boost, depending on how it looks like you're going to play into them. At the very least, we do kind of have generic cards that can help tech the matchup if they're aggro, like Erase Face, turning off
yep,
Boost, a Pummel being able to stop them from playing that max velocity. But it is definitely kind of on a per game basis. You can't always race them, you can't always fatigue them. Just depends.
yeah, 100%. Like erase face comes in clutch. I didn't even think about pummels with those max speed turns. Like a lot of people ask me how to play in the dash, and it's kind of like my answer is always just like I figure that out halfway through the game. You know, like if you start off with all your good aggressive cards and you're winning, then like I'll push. If I'm just getting like they're only boosting blues, they're hitting me with all of the couriers, they're starting off strong, then I'm switching to fatigue, and then once I realize they're slowing down to set up a maximum velocity, I switch back on. Like it's a hard matchup.
Mhm.
So would you leave Dash in like the undecided territory? Or are you pretty hard on claws? Because
I would say claws.
yeah, I think so too.
If I'm fatiguing them, having a club doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme
Mm-mm.
of things.
Yeah, 100%. I think you gotta be flexible, which means like you need to keep your damage open. All right, an interesting one, Dromai. I don't think this one's very hard on the decision, but what do you think?
Yeah, so there is. It feels like there's some discourse with some people liking club and claws.
Yeah,
I just think you need claws because you need to push through.
me too.
It does get pretty difficult to kill, Mirage guy, the most annoying dragon being 4 health.
Yeah,
But there are ways to tech for it. I've actually run Pursuit of Knowledge in the past, which is a pretty good option, but does have that
that's
2 block.
That's hot. I was running contrabands, right? You
Hmm.
throw a contraband at a dragon, get a blood rush back. Contrabands actually came to bite me in my most recent drill my game. I put a blood rush back up and then drew all three, and I was like, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, drill my. I think claws. You need to go for it. You need to penetrate. You need to go fast. Don't give them too long. It's another one of those decks where like if you go second cycle, third cycle in the Dromai, like you've lost. Like you've just lost. Their cards last longer. They stay on the board. You're gonna run out of sixes. All right, this is a big topic. One of the most meta heroes we have today, and that is Isylander. How do you feel into Isylander?
Yeah, so it's like Oldhim, but even more interaction. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, hypothermia can just be a massive blowout. They don't
Oh
need to
man.
have it in hand or anything. You can't intimidate it away.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be very difficult trying to play around that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you might just have to roll scabs on your blood rush turn and hope that you get lucky.
Yeah. I have a really bad track record into Icelander, and that's supposed to be one of our most favored matchups, right? Like, well, at least supposedly. So you run claws into Icelander?
Yeah, I think claws is the play just because
Hmm.
generally it feels like I'm kind of trading 2 cards back and forth, right? When they're doing a wounded bull, I'll
Yeah.
block 6 and throw in an E strike, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll try to break the parity with a big blood rush turn if I can.
It's interesting. I have been thinking of trying club into Icelander, so it's interesting to hear claws too, because I mean, again, I've said the same thing a couple times, but like if you give Icelander too much time, she wins. You know, and she
Yeah.
wins like extra hard. 3 insidious chills and frost hexes on the table, you're dead. You don't get to play the game anymore. So you do need to kill her fast. So interesting. I wasn't sure on that. Okay, we're getting close to the end. What do you think about Kano?
So I don't have a ton of experience in the Kano. Someone might have seen my game into Hayden Dale and know that I haven't played it too much. But at the end of the day, I would say claws, right? Just
Yeah,
because they're a 30 health hero. One
kill
big
him.
blood rush is kind of it says, hey, do your combo or you're dead.
100%. Yeah, I run claws. I have a little bit more practice in the Kano. There's a couple at my shop. I still got absolutely obliterated at San Jose by one. It's like 30, 40 damage out of nowhere. But yeah, I'd say Claws. You want to kill him fast. Another one of those decks. Just don't let him opt for 7 years, right? Like just put him in the floor. Okay, we're getting in Runeblade territory. What do you think about Briar?
So for Briar, she does have a lot of on hits, but at the same time, the Rune Blades just are good at leaking damage, and you can't really give them the time to hit those massive turns with a bunch of Majestics. So I do opt for Claws. This
Okay,
is one matchup I would run Skull Crushers in myself, just because I don't plan on
interesting.
rolling a lot, but that one armor can really help.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. Skull Crusher is an interesting one for me. I a little bit on the opposite side actually. So, well, not really, but I run Claws also. Clearly, I mean, even if I had the choice between the two, I'd be running Claws because you need to kill her because she plays an unfair game into us. We can't block her effectively. Channel Mount Heroic means that our cards are basically nullified from value. So I roll a lot into Briar. So I
Yeah.
tend to bring Gambler's Gloves in 100% because like I'm rolling, right? Like I'm throwing every greedy card. I'm rolling on Savage Feast. I'm rolling on Tome. I'm rolling on Blood Rushes. I'm rolling, as long as Gambler's Gloves are up, I'm rolling, right? So interesting. Yeah, Claws, I think better. I agree 100%. And then my least favorite hero to play against as Rhinar in the game currently, Viserai. What
Yeah,
do you go?
so
What's your strategy?
funny enough, Viserai is the reason I started playing Claws in the first place, because back in the day there was this OTK Viserai deck that you couldn't get cards out of your hand defensively, so you had to make sure
Yeah.
you could use your entire hand.
Yep.
And that's not, I don't think that's the most popular build right now. There is the Looming Doom from Dynasty that sometimes people will play, but
Yeah.
uh, kind of similar to Briar, they're an aggressive deck that has some on hits, but not always. And sometimes you can ignore that Yellow Moth Skies if you got that big Blood Rush turn coming up. So
Yeah.
always do claws.
Yeah, agree. Want to kill him. Don't like him. Purple guy is mean. Do you do you have any like specific strategies into the rune blades at all, or any like card combos that you really look to pull off? Because I think it is one of our hardest matchups.
Yeah, so some people like using that all you got, and I'm a pretty big fan of it just because if you're pretty sure they're going to use their Rosetta Thorn, which they normally will, it's a pretty good weapon,
Yeah, pretty good.
then you can draw that card, and you can't always use it well just because you draw a red and it doesn't really help you because you have an E strike in hand. But
Yeah.
the nice thing is that if you have that E strike, you could just block with all your other cards and then tuck that card you just got with Tag. So
Yeah. Yeah. They're just hard matchups. Like, you kind of have to push for it. A lot of the time, like you can get lucky or they can get unlucky, right? But you just kind of have to push really hard. Don't over block, but don't give them free triggers. Like, don't let them turn on a snatch. Like, just don't do that. It's a hard matchup, but just lean into what makes us good, right? Which is Blood Rush Bellows, Scab Skins, and some of our more cheaty kind of 2-card plays, right? And then I think this is the last here on our list. So, the brand new Assassin. I don't know if you've gotten too many games into this hero, but have you kind of figured out a strategy, or if you're leaning on clubs or claw?
yeah, so I haven't played this hero too much, but have given it some thought. It is kind of weird just because sometimes blocking plays into his game just because he has those cards that punish you, even though he also has on hits that tell you to block.
Right.
But I would say that I'm currently leaning towards claws. It is a little bit risky just because he'll banish your Blood Rush Bellow and it feels a little scary. It feels like you're running out of gas. But
Oh man.
yeah, I think I'd
Yeah.
still lean towards claws.
I think I agree too. Playing online, like they play a very fair game on damage. They're pretty below rate a lot of the time. They have a hard time getting go again. On I've been playing like a full aggro cheetah variant, just kind of like testing out Berserk, trying to see like what its power value actually could be. And when I went faster into the assassin class, like they didn't even get to do anything. It's just, here's an intimidate, here's 18, right? Here's 12, here's a Berserk, right? They were basically crushing the Arachnis that I was playing online when I was really Berserk style. And then when I went way into like the defensive side, like putting in D reacts and all that kind of stuff, I actually was, sometimes almost on the verge of getting fatigued. So it's strange, but I think like full penetration, all intimidate, go for the fence, like actually works into them. It's interesting. When they get more cards, that's when I'm going to be a little scared. I just don't think they have the toolkit right now to really like deal with aggressive decks. Yeah, and it's weird. Their daggers don't work into wizard and warrior. And those
Very
are two
awkward,
of their
yeah.
worst matchups, right? So it's weird. It's weird. I think it's in a weird spot. Hey everybody, thanks for hanging out with us through this video. It's my first ever time having somebody on the show, and I'm very excited and just very thankful for Chandler to come on today. So we're going to be looking for your name this next competitive season. Are you hitting up any major tournaments kind of early in the year?
Yeah, I think at the very least I will be at the Calling Indianapolis. I
All
think
right.
it'll be a really fun event. In terms of ProQuest season, I do plan on being at the EXP Gaming Lounge. It will be the first weekend of ProQuest season, and I think we plan on having it streamed. So hopefully I can get some games on stream and show people how the deck plays.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I can't wait to watch. I'm expecting to see some big tournaments with your name on them next year. So hopefully I'll be there right next to you. I'm actually considering Indianapolis as well, so maybe we can hang out, talk some Rhinar, and really like put people in their place playing the Green Man. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day.